If you simplified it to the basics, the bare bones, La La Land is a musical romance drama which falls very much into the same category as the late 90s and early 2000s Bollywood romances, a genre that was dominated by Shah Rukh Khan, hereafter referred to as SRK. In his films, which are mostly romances, Shah Rukh Khan finds a girl, falls in love with her, then there's some obstacle and then they come over it and well, it's a happy ending. This trope has been done so many times, it's uncountable, but SRK does it differently most times. Like in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, he comes to his first love after losing his wife. Or how in Dear Zindagi plays an unconventional psychologist treating a girl who's going through a tough breakup. Though his films have different setups and storylines, in the end he always does end up with the girl. And La La Land is on the same spectrum. It is a very simple love story like any other SRK film, but the difference is how it ends. There's a guy, there's a girl, they fall in love, and then they drift apart. Then they come close for one last time, and then they drift apart forever. One would say SRK films end just right before La La Land's tragedy, when the characters come close for one last time, and then they just stay together forever. But that would be untrue in the case of Kal Ho Naa Ho. This is probably my favorite SRK romance film. Not only because I saw this as a kid, so the nostalgia kicks in hard, but rewatching it even decades later, you can kind of get why this film works so well. But first, are these two films even a good comparison to make? Well, let's see. Kal Ho Naa Ho was released in 2003, La La Land was released in 2016. That's already 13 years of differences. And while I'd like to consider the difference between Hollywood and Bollywood films, which has been spanning for almost a century, La La Land is a tribute to old classical love story films, and Kal Ho Naa Ho falls into the same genre. Look, even Google agrees. So a comparison isn't too unfair to make. Now let's address a simple fact. I am Indian, yes, and you could slack this video off by saying, oh, MDR is an Indian so he loves his own country's films, whatever. But if you have seen my top 10 movies video, which you can watch by clicking the top right prompt on your screen, you'll find that your assumption may be a little false. Anyway, Kal Ho Naa Ho is a love story about 3 characters, though it focuses on 2 more than the third. Aman is a guy, Nana is a girl, they fall in love, and then there's the third character, Rohit, played by Saif Ali Khan. Having that third angle not being a side character but 1/3 of the film, Rohit's storyline simultaneously goes along with the main story, which adds a lot of screen time to the film obviously. Which is probably why it's timed at 3 hours despite having a very tight screenplay, while La La Land with absolutely no other characters than the main 2 stands at 2 hours. Both films span a long and simple story until one crucial moment that ends up separating both. That is the plot twist. I get the point of La La Land's director Damien Chazelle. He wants to paint a perfect love story like some old classic romance and then betray us right at the end, thus giving the film its own identity. But does this really work well? Maybe it worked so well that it won the film many Oscars, but not for me. Honestly, I don't know why, but it just doesn't work in my case. I found for a lot of people who watch this film, who I know personally, and for me too, that the ending kind of ruins the entire film for them. And it's not because they don't expect it at all, the plot twist, but it just seems forced and sort of brutal in a way. It would have made more sense to see Mia and Sebastian drift apart completely, but their speech right before the climax, that closeness that they have despite the fact that their paths are gonna be changing soon, the redemption of their relationship, doesn't really make everything sound so convincing. So when it is revealed that 5 years later Mia is with someone else, it doesn't fit in with the story at all. She was supposed to go for 6 months, not 6 years. If she couldn't keep up with Sebastian for 6 months, then she shouldn't have been blaming him in the first place for touring, even though he was taking out time for her. It's just one of those moments where you're like, what just happened? Because if they had a relationship and then they drifted apart, then that doesn't fit into the narrative of the film because that part is not even shown. So you're gonna show me 2 hours of love story and then not show the crucial point where they're drifting apart, which they claim to do when she goes back to her own town, but then they come back. You see how confusing this is getting? Exactly. Kal Ho Naa Ho does this betrayal too, but in a much better way. The plot twist of the film is right before the ending of the first half. We find out that Aman, who's in love with Nana, is trying to push her away towards Rohit because he has a heart condition that is killing him. It comes unexpectedly, but you're sort of anticipating something to go wrong throughout the entire first half, and this is done brilliantly. Aman's character seems life-loving and free, while everyone else is dealing with problems in very negative ways. And Aman sort of frees everyone of their worries whenever he's on screen. It gives you that thought, why is he doing this? Is he just this guy? Or is this something beyond this? But the film doesn't let you keep this question, because he kept this question in Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, which was done in 1994. So that question is kind of eradicated, because him being in love with Nana and still trying to push her away also raises some more questions. And then the film doesn't let you keep those questions in your head too. The first twist comes to Nana and the audience when both think that Aman is married to someone else. And right after she leaves, you think, well, Aman might be unhappily married and in love with someone else. But then Aman's breakdown subverts the viewer's expectations when he reveals his heart condition. That the photograph is just him attending his doctor's wedding, which was misunderstood and worked out in his favor. It's done so well that there is no way you can point out a plot hole in the film, before or after this. Whereas La La Land just sort of skips all this and shows Mia being with someone else. La La Land doesn't subvert the viewer's expectations, it just hurts it. Rewatching a film that has a plot twist and knowing what's gonna happen should add to the fun of it. Like in Kal Ho Naa Ho, on your second watch, it'll make you realize how many subtle hints there are in the first half of the film. La La Land, instead of hinting or slowly and subconsciously feeding our brains the idea of this upcoming betrayal, doesn't come across as anything close to what its purpose is. But Kal Ho Naa Ho's betrayal hits home, and it hits hard. I find that these 2 points of both films are the most crucial in order to compare why I think one is better than the other. Because other than this, they're just both romance stories, and I like both of them in their own sort of ways. Both films are also musicals, so they have songs that are subject to personal views. Though I think the beginning of La La Land is impressive with the dance in the highway interchange, but it's not really related to the film now, is it? And the 2 main characters aren't even in it, so what's the point again? It's that same thing where if something is done with a lot of effort, we have to sort of just appreciate it, even if it has nothing to do with anything. At least when SRK stands on a Manhattan bridge alone, it shows his eternal loneliness in the busiest city of the world. With La La Land, I cannot completely understand what has to do with what. A lot of it just seems forced. Though I do like the sequence of Mia imagining her life with Sebastian that could have been. That contributes to the story in major ways. I absolutely love that sequence. See, in the end, I wouldn't compare the plot twist of a film like Fight Club to Kal Ho Naa Ho, but it is somewhat halfway across there. It seems ridiculous, but it is. La La Land's plot twist though just makes me feel like this woman is just brutal. Maybe Chazelle wanted us to feel sad and heartbroken, but I just felt angry because this woman owed her career to Sebastian besides loving him, which is the most important thing. So when she does make it into the industry, what everything in the film was all about, she just nods way to her $1 million house? That is not a betrayal. That is just brutal. Thanks for watching MDR. I hope you get my point. If you don't agree, it's subjective, you know? So you're always welcome to drop your thoughts in the comments. Just don't spread any negativity in the world. There's enough of that already. Cheers.